Okay, awesome. So I'm really excited for everyone to be here today for the Disability In meetup on disclosure. And I am Lori Brazili. I'm the program manager for the Career Meetup program. And so really excited to have worked with Sue Ann, who's one of our graduate assistants in the Career Center. And I'm going to turn it over to Sue Ann, who's going to get us started.
Hi, my name is Suan Trong. I'm not too sure why I'm showing up as an anonymous user, but we're just going to go with it. So today I want to introduce our speaker, Beth Butler. She is the Executive Director for Disability in North Carolina. She's going to be presenting on inclusion and disclosure, and we're going to have about the last 10 minutes to have a Q&A session. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or save them at the end for Beth. And Beth, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, perfect. Thank you, Sue Ann, and thank you to UNC Charlotte for the opportunity to open up a conversation around a really, really important topic as we kind of wrap up October as National Disability Employment Awareness Month. For those of us that work in this space, this is a busy, busy, busy time, and really allows us to get in front of a lot of different audiences to talk about a really important topic that is not just a 1 month out of the year for probably many of you that are on today's call as well, right? This is something that is a part of your diversity journey at UNCC as a student or as a member of faculty or just an employer that's interested in this work. So again, welcome. I'm very excited about the opportunity to talk with you. Just as a reminder as well, I am an attorney, so I am going to I'm going to share just a disclaimer as we move forward that this webinar, the information shared during this webinar is really to provide general information and does not constitute legal advice. So you should not take any action based on any information that you hear during today's presentation without first consulting your attorney. So from an attorney to you have to start off with some important legal disclaimers. So with that, again, my name is Beth Butler. I have the privilege of serving as Executive Director of Disability in North Carolina. We are a business-to-business network, and our focus is really to empower businesses to achieve disability, inclusion, and equality for all. As part of my story, I am also a person with a disability. At age 4, I was diagnosed with an underdeveloped optic nerve in both eyes. So I'm legally blind and have been since birth. So this is an important part of both my, not only my professional journey, but my personal journey as well. And so it's a part of who I am. And so hopefully today I want to be able to share with you some of my experiences and kind of how we maneuver through this idea of self-disclosure. So the real question around disclosure is to disclose or not to disclose. Now, I have a son who loves theater, and Shakespeare is a big part of that. So when we think about, this idea, and for those that don't know much about theater, to be or not to be, that is the question, right? A Hamlet, very famous line out of Hamlet. But to disclose or not to disclose, and is that the question? I mean, I think that's the challenge for us as individuals with disabilities. And as many know, there are over 57 million Americans with disabilities across the United States. 75% of those people with disabilities, though, have non-visible disabilities. So that's a huge number. So disclosure is a really important topic to talk about as we move through today's conversation. It's something that that won't. Let me say this: it's not going to be fixed here, right? It's my hope is that today, after we have some discussion, you perhaps as an individual with a disability will be better equipped to move forward and make those decisions for yourself in terms of when you disclose, where you disclose, that type of thing. So again, very, very important topic. So as I said, I really think that this whole journey through what's right, what's wrong, the questions that one considers, it's such an individual decision for you to disclose or not to disclose. That process that you go through around what that looks like for you is a journey that you're going to need to take. And I think now, and again, kudos to UNC Charlotte and the Career Services Department for hosting things like this, like these meetups, to open up conversation around this topic, because now is the time for you as college students with disabilities to really be grappling with, what does that look like, right? What is too much information? Do I need to disclose at all? Am I required to disclose? Whatever those questions are, the opportunity is now for you to ask those kinds of questions and really get to a place where you as an individual with a disability are comfortable with your response and with that whole process and when to disclose. So when we think about the confusion, quite honestly, that has been created, because it has, I've been around for a very long time. I started law school back in 1990. Okay. And so people couldn't even spell ADA back then. It was so new. The ink wasn't dry on the on the legislation at that time. So my journey into employment was really one where I always felt like I was more comfortable disclosing at the onset of an application process, because for me, it was never a big deal for me growing up. And when I say big deal for me, right, I mean, I didn't care whether people knew or didn't know. Now, looking at me here, you wouldn't know that I had a disability, but it wouldn't take you long if you saw me read a document, for example. I have large print software on my computer. I carry magnification devices with me. I'm sure as a student, and this is back in the old days, okay, so bear with me. When teachers would actually write on a chalkboard, I would get up from my desk and never ask permission to do that. I'd just get up and go sit on the floor in front of the class and write down what I needed to write down and then go back to my desk, right? No one ever questioned it or said anything, or I just did what I needed to do to be successful, because I knew if I sat in my desk and she was asking us to copy something from the board, or he was asking us to write down homework assignments that were always to the right of the chalkboard, I wouldn't know that. I couldn't get that information unless I did something, right, to do that. So that's kind of been my journey up to that point. So I think that as I moved into a employment situation, that was something that I continued to do. And so we didn't have a lot of discussion around disclosure or not disclosure. So it was all very, very new. When we think about Section 503, okay, of the Rehabilitation Act and those regulations specifically, it's important to understand, right, that they are kind of breaking down what Section 503 covers versus what the Americans with Disabilities Act covers. Because what I think has happened, right, from an employer perspective, is that we started off with the Section 503, or I'm sorry, the ADA, really. And then as 503 regs came out, there was this idea of the violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we didn't do a good job of kind of unwrapping that for applicants and for people with disabilities, because all of a sudden under ADA, you were told, well, you can't ask, right? Recruiters can't ask questions about disabilities. But then overnight, we have the Section 503 regs that actually require employers to create forms or to utilize forms and to engage in this voluntary self-disclosure process, right? So it's really been a bit of a confusing time in some respects, and so I want to spend just a bit of time kind of unwrapping some of that for you. So when we think about Section 503, right, that is an area that is kind of managed, if you will, by the Department of Labor's Office of Federal Contracts and Compliance Programs. Okay, Section 503 is managed by that organization. It does apply to federal contractors. Okay, so not all employers are federal contractors. But what it does is it does require contractors to, again, offer or invite both applicants and employees to self-disclose, voluntarily self-disclose that they have a disability. They're charged with doing that. And so when you apply for a particular position, even if it's online, you may have a screen that pops up right away that says, are you a person? And it doesn't, there's a form that's used, right? But among the questions asked will be, do you consider yourself or do you qualify as an individual with a disability? And so that right there can, if you're not used to that, if you're not aware of that, right, that can kind of catch you off guard to say, whoa, wait a minute. Like what kind of employer is just going to throw that out there? I haven't even gotten through the application process. Well, that is why. Okay, they're a federal contractor and they're required to do that. So I want to just kind of put that out there for those that again are not as familiar with that. And so there are, if we look in contrast to that, to the Americans with Disabilities Act under Title I, that is enforced by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And it does, again, create or cover private employers with 15 or more employees, and some of whom also may be federal contractors. Okay, so there's some private employers that are going to qualify as a federal contractor and also, have to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act as well. And some employers, again, are charged with not only compliance under the Americans with Disabilities Act, but are also then charged with conducting what we call self-identification campaigns, which many of them engage in to assess their current employees. So it's not just about requesting or inviting applicants to self-disclose at the time that they apply, but it is also once every 5 years, they're charged with engaging in a voluntary self-disclosure process of their current employees. Okay, so what does all this mean? And I know that's probably a lot, right, to throw at the onset of this conversation, but I do think it's important for us to understand why we are even having this conversation. Okay, because it is important for you to understand the why behind, why does my employer even have to know? Why do they want to know? So that's an important piece of this. So being sure that employers, again, are asking disability related or not asking disability related questions. So the ADA goes beyond, right, in ensuring that individuals with disabilities or applicants with disabilities are not being discriminated against, right? That's leveling that playing field to ensure that when you apply for a position, you're covered if you are a qualified individual with a disability where you have a physical or mental impairment, right, that substantially limits one or more major life activities. If you have a record of such an impairment, or you're regarded as having an impairment, many of you all know that. So that's the definition of a disability. As you apply or go through that application process, and we think about disclosure. You may or may not have to disclose during an application process if that application process is accessible to you, right? To you. Some people with disabilities may not have an issue with an application process. Others may have challenges that require a certain level of accommodation, even to get through the application process. So your decision to disclose a disability may be very different, right, from someone else's decision to disclose. So there's no right or wrong answer to this, right? There's no right or wrong process in doing this, and that's what I want you to understand and appreciate about this process. Disability related questions can be asked after a conditional job offer, but it has to relate to, and it has to be, not only does it have to be relevant to the job itself, but it has to be something that is done to all applicants for that job. And let me give you an example of that, right? Let's say there is a CDL driver, right? A truck driver. Okay. Many times, in order to have a CDL license, you have to have certain medical examinations. Why? Because you are operating a giant truck, right? And you have to be sure that there are certain medical examinations and so forth that are required. That's across the board for everybody. So in those instances, it could be that the individual or the employer would require a certain examination for specific positions like that. So the difference between self-identification and self-disclosure, okay, because you hear them used interchangeably a lot, and the idea behind self-identification is really about checking the box. So when I say under OFCCP's guidelines of Section 503, federal contractors are charged with using the self-identification form that's actually created, right, by the OFCCP. There are specific forms that employers are charged with using. In fact, I think most recently it was revised in August of 2020. So if you have been out there applying for jobs with maybe state or federal government, you will see that they have actually included in that form now a longer list, not an exhaustive list of types of disabilities that's all inclusive, but certainly a number of different types of disabilities are included on that form. Why? Well, because there's a number of people that have qualifying health conditions that qualify as a disability that many people don't even know that, right? They're not even aware of that. And so the OFCCP felt that it was important to include a list so that individuals that receive this will be able to go down there and go, oh my gosh, I had no idea, and then make, right, the individual decision on whether they want to identify as a person with a disability or not. Again, we could, talk a lot about the form itself, the processes that companies use. That is a form that you will see again at the point that you apply. And you will see it again at the time that you are extended an offer of employment as well. And you might say, well, why? It's none of their business, right? It's none of their, and why? And the truth is, right, that the personal ins and outs of your disability that's none of their business. That's correct. Okay. But the purpose behind them asking is because as federal contractors, because of the work that they do with the federal government, they have a certain number, and I'm not going to get into the details of all that, but they have a certain number of federal contracts, right, that generate revenue for their company or their organization. So as a result of that, right, this regulation applies. And so, and this is what we spend a lot of time with employers talking about when we conduct self-ID campaigns, because it is so important for senior executives in a company, HR executives, right, or compliance attorneys that are out there driving these self-ID campaigns within these organizations to be very clear and transparent as to why they're asking for this information. Because otherwise, right, it does kind of set you back. Like, well, it's none of your business. Thank you. And the reality is, the companies that we work with, and I will tell you, there are companies out there doing tremendous work in this space to create cultures that are inclusive of everyone. Okay, so if everybody sits back and doesn't disclose or is not willing to take the risk, and I say take the risk because anytime we're vulnerable with any level of diverse aspects, right, or characteristics of ourselves, regardless of whether it's disability, if it's ethnicity, if it's sexual, whatever it is, it's a risk. Okay, and so this risk is one where there's an opportunity for a company to begin to really implement policies and practices, and look at accommodation policies and practices. So all of these steps to self-identify pour into the work that a company is focused on and making them better. Not always, obviously. I'm not going to paint a rosy picture. We all know that there are still significant issues out there. And quite honestly, there's risks, right, associated with identifying. But it is the piece of this that kind of answers the why behind why self identification. So again, checking the box is one aspect of it. Self disclosure is really going beyond just checking the box and saying, yes, I'm a person with a disability. Thank you very much. Check the box. Do what you need to do. Under the regulations, right? Which, by the way, and let me back up and say this: under the OFCCP regulations, federal contractors are charged with ideally setting an aspirational goal, right, of having 7% of their entire workforce, okay, 7% of their workforce be representing people with disabilities. Okay, that's a huge number. It is an aspirational goal, so there's not a monetary penalty associated with not achieving that on these federal contractors, but it is an aspirational goal. And so the more individuals that self-identify within those companies, and again, they may or may not need an accommodation as a result of it, but they're just raising their hand saying, yes, I am a person with a disability. That, again, helps that company be able to achieve that 7% utilization goal. So self-disclosure, on the other hand, is again, goes beyond just checking the box, gives individuals an opportunity to disclose. Well, it really does require a higher level of trust, right, within an organization. It's not only saying, hey, I've got a vision problem, but I've got a vision problem that requires some accommodations. If I were to go to work for an organization and I would not disclose, or maybe I just check the box and self-ID as a person who is legally blind, but didn't go beyond that, I wouldn't keep that job very long, I don't think. Okay, because I wouldn't be very productive. I wouldn't be responsive to an email because I cannot see a screen that does not have some kind of a magnification software on it, right? Transportation, if I was applying for a sales position that required, well, let me say this, transportation, well, I'm gonna stop there because with Uber and other things now, there may be ways that I could absolutely accommodate a job or complete a job that has high transportation needs. But the bottom line, let me say this: I'm not going to apply for a truck driver job, right? Because you don't want me behind the wheel of any vehicle at all ever. But that's just safety for everybody. So again, self-disclosure would be an important piece of that for me, and it is for those again that have a need for accommodations in many instances. And so I really want to open some conversation. I know we said we'd have Q&A and so forth at the end of this, but this is a really I think important time to have some open discussion around various questions. Is an applicant required to disclose a disability on an application? Right? I mean, simply because you're asked or invited to disclose doesn't mean that you have to. I remember one of the first jobs, I had graduated from college, had a degree in foreign language in Spanish, and returned back home to, I was trying to decide whether I wanted to go to graduate school or if I wanted to go to law school. And I wasn't convinced that I was, law school just terrified me, quite frankly, because of the amount of reading and because of my disability. I just thought, how in the world? I wasn't sure. So I took some time and applied for and returned home. And my dad, so graciously as he did, honey, I love you. I'm really proud of you, and I'm so proud that you graduated from college. That's fantastic. But while you're sitting here deciding what you're going to do next, you're going to get a job. So off I went. Had my 4-year degree. Just the world was at my fingertips, and I went to a local hotel, resort kind of area, and there was a pool bar server job open, and I thought, well, that sounds like fun, right? Who wouldn't want to be outside all day behind, on the beach or by the pool, waiting on customers and serving food and drinks and stuff like that? And I thought, well, that sounds fun. So I go in, I apply, I go in and interview, and I am sitting in front of the manager at the time, and he's, answer all the questions and so forth, and he says, okay, so is there anything else that you think I need to know? And I said, well, and you know what I'm talking about if you're a person with a non-visible disability, that moment of, right? Do I say? And so for a split second, I paused for a minute and I thought, well, as a matter of fact, I said, I do have a disability. I said, I've got low vision, so I don't drive as a result. Okay. And looking back on this now, I'm like thinking, it could just be like this, yeah, that like you don't drive. So now all of a sudden attendance is number one, concern. Like, really? Like, okay, she's not going to ever be on time. She's never going to be here. So I said, I just live down the street, and I said, I've got a bike, and I'll ride my bike back and forth. It won't be any trouble at all. Done. So again, right? Feeling great. 4-year degree, right? 4-year college degree. I got this. I can do this. Go back home, and I didn't get a call back. And I waited for a day. And all of a sudden, right, my wheels are turning in my head going, Now, mind you, guys, this was 1990, right? 1990. So all this new, right, stuff now around ADA. And so I finally reached out and learned that, yes, in fact, and it was through a friend, but learned that they were concerned about the fact that I couldn't, of my disability, right? Just by me saying that I had a disability, not how I handled myself during the interview, none of that, right? I didn't have a service animal with me. I don't carry a cane with me. Just by me saying to them I had a disability, that door closed like that, right? So what is that? That was exactly what I needed, though, right? To sit down and write my application out for law school. Okay. Now that's not because I'm going out and beating people up because they don't get it. That's just not who I am. That's not what drove me to go to law school. But it did open my eyes to the importance of doing the work that we're doing now, which is to help companies understand the importance of not judging, right? And not putting our perceptions of what people can't do ahead of what they can do, right? Look at me and give me a shot, right? At demonstrating what I can do and contribute to your organization. And so that was really a part of my aha moment in my journey of starting. So long story short, I did talk with someone who found out that yes, in fact, they were concerned about it. This individual, assured them that I could do the position, do the job, give me a shot, and I did. And I did went back, got the job, and did great until I left to go to law school. So I was there for about 8 months or 9 months, and then went on to law school after that. Or no, I didn't. I got a job in a law firm actually, and left them to do that for a few months before I went on to school. So, but that's important, right? It's important to hear that story because it certainly did impact, right? It hurts. It hurts. I mean, let's just be honest, right? We want to be counted for what we can do, and we want to be given a shot. And so that was a big moment for me. I had also later on, and again, even after law school, going into a law firm, right, that should know better. And this whole idea of your resume, right, and what to put on your resume or what not to put on your resume. There's a big, again, it's an individual decision, okay, of what you put on there. I had gotten an award in law school, and it was associated with the disability award. And I had that on my resume. And I was also a member of the American Blind Lawyers Association. So again, I go into this interview for this attorney's position, and the attorney looks up at me and looks down, looks up and says, "What, are you blind?" I said, "As a matter of fact, I am." And I think if he could have melted into the floor, he would have. But again, what I didn't. I continued on with the interview, shared with him, and in my mind, I'm thinking, I have zero desire to work for a firm, right, or in an employer. And I know you know what I'm talking about. This is all part of the journey, right? You have a choice as to where you work, right? We all have choices as to where we work. And so I knew at that point that that's probably not a good fit for me, regardless of the outcome of the interview, probably not the culture that I was looking for. So I share those personal stories with you as a way to encourage you that this is this topic is very it is very difficult, but I want to challenge you to really take time now, right, and use the experiences that you've had, both positive and negative, right, in your disability journey, to refine and define kind of who you are, and what you bring to an organization as it relates to your disability. I am very encouraged by what I see within corporate cultures today versus, back in 1990 when I started this journey myself, because. And listen, it doesn't mean they're perfect, because I promise you they're not. But I do see some really tremendous progress being made around conversations and the supports and the campaigns, if you will, the self-ID campaigns, or the focused effort that employers have around creating cultures of inclusion. I often wonder, it is so difficult sometimes for folks to imagine what it would be like, right, to be legally blind, or even just imagine what it would be like not to be able to drive a car. And, we sit here, on WebEx today, right, in a virtual setting because of what? Because of the pandemic, right? So we have all been forced to kind of think differently about how we work, and really has created an opportunity for some a greater understanding of what so many, I think, individuals with disabilities, right, have experienced for a long, long time around maybe isolation, or just not having for me, it's just not having the ability or the capacity to get up and go when I want to go. I know, Sue Ann, you and I've talked about that. I mean, the fact that now, for the first time, some can come to class, right, or come to an office without having to wait on an Uber, be stressed as to whether or not they're going to come, right? They may not decide they want to take the ride, so you get a cancellation 3 times before you actually get one. You're supposed to be downtown to Charlotte to a meeting, and what nobody knows, right, what everybody goes through. And in your case, as students, sometimes just to get to class, right? Everybody thinks, oh, well, no, you don't know if people have had to take 2 different bus lines, right? Or wait in the rain, or, take a ramp that's all the way out from underneath where the nice covering is, and they're sopping wet, and their books or papers might have gotten wet. We don't understand. But having experienced the last 6-8 months, some of us have a little bit better understanding, right, of the benefits, right, of being able to go when you want to go. So, and I will tell you this: I have seen amazing things come from companies as well that have been engaged in employers that have been focused on disability inclusion and creating those cultures, have done a tremendous job in pivoting to an online or virtual platform, and in some instances far easier than those that have not been engaged in some of this work, because they get it, right? They understand now. And for years and years, we have been talking about this concept of virtual working, right? And some people with disabilities are really limited in how often they can get into a workplace or to an office. And so there's opportunities out there that are specifically designed, or, you look for specific jobs potentially that could accommodate a remote working type of a situation. And now all of a sudden, right, overnight, the United States, we have figured out, from a corporate perspective, how to make this happen. And so I am always an optimist. I always believe things happen. There's a purpose in everything. And if there is one incredible thing that I think has really opened our eyes in the last, 6 to 9 months, has been this idea of just slowing down a little bit, right? And understanding the importance of recognizing the differences that we have out there, and having an appreciation for an opportunity to work remotely and maybe do things a little different than we've done them in the past. Right now, I am a people person, so I promise you, the first chance that I get to be in person, in a room, touching and hugging and feeling people, I'm going to do it. So don't get me wrong. I am not, and Sue Ann and I have had that conversation. I am absolutely convinced more than ever that I am a people person. I am an extrovert. But I absolutely have an appreciation for the importance of those that have a need to stay safe, right? Stay mindful of what they need to do to take care of themselves. And I think that's an important piece of this. I will also say, and then I'm gonna kind of open it up for some questions. Is I do believe that corporate America has a better appreciation now more than ever around the mental health and wellness of our workforce. And for those that have not had a focus on that or understood that in the past, I think that we are in a position to take a deeper look at that. Make sure that our benefits programs are supporting, employee assistance programs are supporting the counseling and the needs of those that struggle with the mental health, whether it's depression or anxiety. But that has been a big key area of focus for many of our companies now, to ensure that those policies and benefits are in place to give the care that is needed based on kind of where we've been, and take away the shame, right, and the stigma associated with disclosing that. Because when we think about the self-disclosure concept, as we begin to open up our economy again, I remind companies all the time that you are going to have, and you may have, employees that are returning back to work or returning to an office, whatever that looks like going forward, that may never have disclosed to you that they had a disability. Maybe they've worked for you for 15 or 20 years, and because of medication, because of other things, they have been able to manage their disability to where they didn't have to disclose. But based on where we've been in the last 6 to 8 months with the pandemic, they are going to be forced to disclose, whether it's an autoimmune disorder, diabetes, whatever. They may be forced to disclose that disability for the first time. And so, are we ready for that, right? Do we have accommodations, policies, practices in place to support those individuals as they come forward? So again, just a lot to think about, and a lot to be mindful of around this topic of self-identification and self-disclosure.
Beth, I have a question. For individuals who are in the job search process, knowing that I guess federal contractors have the aspirational goals to hire individuals with disabilities, is there a list that people can find of federal contractors, or how would somebody know to target these employers that have said we're committed to being inclusive and that sort of thing?
That's a great question. There is an organization called the Industry Liaison Group, or ILGs. And these are communities of federal contractors. So they're networks of federal contractors. And often they're led by an organization. OFCCP is also fosters the creation of a lot of these ILGs for the purpose of just educating federal contractors, keeping them up to speed on the latest and greatest of the regulations and so forth. But they're called industry liaison groups. And yes, there was one here in the Charlotte area. I know there was an active one. We've been engaged with them here in Charlotte as well as in the Raleigh-Durham area. So if you just Google industry liaison group and then put in Charlotte, they've got a website and so forth, and that would be a great way to identify employers that are engaged in those groups. Could be a great source for candidates looking for employment.
Great. Thank you so much. That's great.
Yeah. Any other questions? I know I did a lot of talking, and I really wanted to give you guys a chance to hear or listen. I'm sorry, or hear from you in terms of any questions you had around, self-disclosure and ID. So see, if you don't talk, I'm going to keep talking. So I know we've just got a couple of seconds, but here's the other thing I want to leave with you, and that is I spent a lot of time in the employment compliance area, employee relations and employment compliance in the area of ADA and accommodations. And so I had a lot of opportunity to work directly with employees as well as managers and executives as it relates to employee relations issues. And one of the things that I want to encourage those that may need an accommodation when in order to perform the functions of your various positions is that you don't want to wait to disclose that you have a disability until after a performance issue has already arisen, right? That's something that's really, really important, and where you've been disciplined, right? Or you're at the point of termination for attendance. Let's just use that as an example. Okay. There's an attendance policy. You know what that is. A good company, right? They should have a process, a disciplinary process. That usually would be something like just a warning, and then maybe a written, and then probation, and then you're gone, whatever it looks like. It's important not to wait to disclose that you have a disability and that your attendance, and let's be clear on that, right? Your attendance is associated with your disability. Okay. Do not wait until the day that you're terminated to raise your hand and say, well, let me tell you about my disability. Okay. That's not the time to tell them. So being really mindful of that, and sharing those challenges and give them an opportunity to work with you, right? That's the key there. I saw that, many times, and that's something that's really important. Now, does that, that's a decision for you to make, for sure. But I would encourage you to just really be open and honest and transparent about what your needs are prior to finding yourself in a situation like that. So, and it is 1:00 on my. So I don't want to keep you beyond your time. I want to be respectful of that. But it was a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Beth, for being here, and for Sue-Ann for getting this coordinated. If folks maybe want to connect with you offline, is that a possibility?
Absolutely. You can reach me at Beth, BETH, at disabilityin.org. And Sue-Ann has my contact information. She can certainly pass that along.
Okay. Great. So if I'll look at the recording, and if if everything seems good, I'll also send it out to everybody that was on the call, so that they can have that as well. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here, and stay safe, and we'll connect next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.